Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are not just watching the runway. We are strapping ourselves into what I can really describe as the sewing machine equivalent of a roller coaster.
Right.
And we are diving headfirst into the chaotic, glamorous, and, well, allegedly rigged world of high-stakes fashion competition.
Yeah,
Specifically, Project Runway.
that's absolutely right. Our mission today is a big one. We're sifting through a really unique stack of source material. We're talking alleged insider accounts, unfiltered designer tell-alls from former contestants, and, the deepest corners of fan forums.
Really deep cuts.
The deep cuts, all to figure out what is really happening behind the scenes. We want to get past that glossy one-hour edited version of reality and uncover, the shifting standards, the alleged manipulation, and the big debate.
Yeah.
Is this show still about finding the next great designer, or is it just about manufacturing conflict now?
Right, because our sources are raw.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're often really contentious, and the claims are, frankly, explosive. So over the next half hour or so, we're going to unpack these huge allegations, rigged eliminations, explicit accusations of production sabotage, the huge controversy around the new judges versus the, let's call it the golden era judges, and that eternal question. Is talent actually rewarded over a good cry or a dramatic walkout?
So if you, the listener, have ever watched a truly talented designer go home over someone who just sent a pile of questionable fabric down the runway.
Well, we all have.
We all have. Or if you've wondered why some fan favorite mentors might not be as squeaky clean as they seem, or why certain winners became these real-life villains long after the show ended, then this deep dive is your shortcut to understanding the messy reality of it all.
Okay, let's just get right into it, starting with this massive jolt of drama that comes straight from the source. We've got these incredibly unfiltered accounts from a designer podcast. It featured Hester from season 17 and Kenley Collins, who came back for season 20 All-Stars. And this wasn't just, spilling the tea. This was a geyser of alleged behind-the-scenes chaos.
It was absolutely headline-grabbing stuff. But we do have to acknowledge the source material itself, right? The sources make it very clear that Kenley, who was already a pretty notorious figure from her first season, she went on this, unhinged coke rant for the first 30 minutes of the recording. And she was later denounced by Hester because of her, let's say, highly problematic public personality.
Problematic is putting it lightly, siding with J.K. Rowling, using inflammatory slurs.
Exactly. So we're dealing with narrators whose own credibility is being questioned by the very community that's discussing their claims. So we have to try and separate the messenger from the message here.
That's a really crucial distinction. We are reporting on the claims themselves, regardless of who made them, and the claims are serious, starting with the one and only, the universally beloved mentor, Tim Gunn.
Right. Both Hester and Kenley claim that Tim Gunn has said racist things in the past. And Hester had a very specific, very personal claim about their own relationship with him from their time at Parsons.
Yeah, they allege that Tim Gunn basically got them kicked out of Parsons.
Yes, and this needs some careful context that the sources provide. Hester's side of the story is that Tim had stepped down from his influential teaching role, and in Hester's view, that created a vacuum where unqualified professors were hired.
Okay.
Hester then clashed, really severely with one of these new faculty members and ended up failing out of the program.
So that's when Tim stepped in.
He did, but his intervention was, it was complex. It wasn't a formal dismissal or anything. His intervention was advisory. He suggested Hester go take some classes at FET, the Fashion Institute of Technology, to get more technical training before trying to come back to Parsons.
So it was framed as advice to salvage their career.
Exactly. It was positioned as advice.
But even if it was meant to be good advice, the fact that a student saw it as being pushed out and then linked it to racism, that suggests a pretty big failure in mentorship or communication, right? Regardless of what Tim's intentions were.
That is the key nuance here. It's this piece of highly contested career advice that's being framed as a deep personal betrayal. We all see Tim Gunn as the moral compass of the show, but this account paints a picture of a more complicated, maybe even authoritarian figure working within these high-stakes academic politics.
It definitely challenges that whole narrative of the ever-pure mentor.
For sure.
And the current mentor, Christian Siriano, is facing his own set of allegations. There's this persistent rumor detailed in the fan sources that Christian is allegedly bankrupt.
And this rumor is, it's pretty widely supported by fan speculation. The thinking is that his high-profile mentor role is really just easy money. It's a calculated move to uphold a social status without much effort.
So if he is bankrupt, then this mentoring gig becomes less about giving back and more about a stable, low-effort job that keeps him famous.
Exactly. It kind of casts a shadow over the whole purpose of his mentorship. Is he there to help, or is he there to help himself?
And his creative integrity is also being questioned. The claims go even further, suggesting that Christian and also Brendan Maxwell have allegedly ripped off other designers' work.
Which is a massive accusation in the design world. Originality is everything. It really speaks to this perceived erosion of integrity at the very top of the show. If your mentor figure is allegedly involved in stealing ideas, it just undermines the whole thing.
And this really sets the stage for the core claims about production sabotage, specifically targeting season 20, the All-Star season.
Right. Hester felt their original season, season 17, was organic and fair, but that season 20 felt like it had an obvious story or agenda prepared from the very beginning.
So what was that agenda?
The allegations for season 20 really revolve around extreme favoritism shown to two designers in particular, Anna and Brittany. The claims detail that these two got these significant, show-breaking privileges. Extra time on challenges, for one. Additional, often specialized supplies. And even access to bigger, more comfortable workrooms.
Wait, extra time. That is the holy grail on Project Runway.
Okay.
To get that privilege when everyone else is racing the clock. That's an insane advantage.
It's an insurmountable advantage. But the claims get even crazier. They were allegedly allowed to go home if they simply feel bad.
What?
Yeah. Unheard of in that kind of lockdown production environment. Contestants are sequestered, they're tightly controlled, you can't just leave. So giving that kind of flexibility, it just screams preferential treatment.
And there's a rumor that Brittany's privilege came from basically nepotism.
Yeah.
The sources claim she's family friends with Brendan Maxwell.
Same country club as mentioned, yeah. And that she was also friends with key production staff.
So it's a closed-loop system of privilege. If you're connected, the rules just don't apply to you.
That's the implication. And Hester added a personal layer to this, specifically accusing Brittany of ripping off their unique dressing style from season 17. So it was like adding insult to injury.
And what about Anna's special treatment? What was the speculation there?
It varied. Kenley speculated it was because Anna had just had a baby, maybe a compassionate allowance. But Hester believed production's goal was much more cynical.
Which was?
To specifically anger Corto, a highly talented and respected designer.
And was Corto angry at Anna?
Well, see, that's the thing. Corto was reportedly upset not at Anna directly, but at the unfairness of the principle of it all, the principle of special treatment in a competition. And that's a crucial nuance that was allegedly completely lost in the final edit.
Which leads us right into the claims of just overt production manipulation. Hester said producers were blatantly sabotaging people for drama. And we have a couple of really specific, really disturbing examples.
The first is what's being called the Corto alcohol incident. Corto had supposedly stated, explicitly that she doesn't handle alcohol well and wanted limitations on it. And yet, production allegedly forced alcohol on her to generate a reaction for the cameras. This is beyond manipulation. This is moving into alleged coercion, just trying to get an emotional breakdown for entertainment.
That is just next level, intentionally putting a competitor in a distressed state to get a soundbite or a tearful exit.
It shows the lengths they'll allegedly go to get the story they want to happen instead of just letting the competition play out. But the second incident is maybe the most critical claim about editing reality and, rewriting history.
And this involves Hester's own elimination.
Yes. Hester claimed they were eliminated only after they called out a racist member of the production team.
Whoa.
And following their elimination, the sources claim the other designers staged a walkout. A protest.
A protest over Hester's elimination.
Yes, and the context around it. And this footage, a mass designer protest against alleged internal production issues, was supposedly re-edited by the showrunners to make it look like the designers were just upset about the special treatment given to Anna.
Wait. So you're telling me they allegedly scrubbed a protest about racism in production and turned it into a petty feud over favoritism?
That is the accusation, a profound manipulation. It essentially used the designers themselves as a tool to cover up a much more serious internal dispute.
It's a dramatic claim of just shaping reality to fit their narrative, hiding their own problems.
And it perfectly illustrates that fundamental shift. Season 17 felt like they were documenting a competition. Season 20 felt like it was completely constructed. The focus moved from talent to just manufacturing these explosive negative storylines.
Okay, shifting gears a bit, let's dive into the core engine of the show itself, the judging, and how the standards have allegedly, devolved. There's this huge nostalgia trap where viewers insist that old Project Runway was wholesome and pure.
It's absolutely a nostalgia trap, and people have short memories. Our sources clearly document that the drama was often more savage, more raw, and genuinely unscripted in those early seasons. The tension was real.
Okay, so give me some examples of that early savagery. What counters this wholesome era idea?
Well, you have historical examples like Jay and Coruscant screaming at Wendy Pepper in season 1. There was that infamous moment where Santino Rice just yelled directly at Nina Garcia on the runway. Utterly disrespectful.
Right.
And we can't forget Jeffrey Sibilia in season 3. His bullying went so far that he made Angela's mother cry during the makeover challenge.
And Tim Gunn himself, so-called moral compass, could be genuinely savage with his assessment.
Oh, for sure. Remember when he told Alexander that a garment was one of the most hideous garments I have ever seen in my entire existence?
I do. That was not gentle advice.
No, that was a character assassination of a piece of clothing. So the meanness isn't new. It's the distribution and the editing of it that's different now.
That's a really key distinction. The argument from the fan sources is that the new seasons are so heavily edited and shortened they cut out crucial workroom footage that all you get is the drama.
Right. It makes it feel completely unbalanced, and you start to believe the drama is the entire point, not the design process.
And this compressed focus on conflict brings us right to the critique of the current judges, especially Law Roach, who came on for season 21. The debate around him is so polarized.
It really is. It reflects what viewers want from a reality TV judge versus what they actually need from a design critic.
Let's start with the arguments against him, because they are brutal. Viewers find him unwatchable, bitchy, mean for mean's sake. They say he lacks constructive feedback.
The one comment that gets cited over and over is his reference to a design making him feel like punching someone in the face.
Yeah, that's not helpful feedback.
No. As one source pointed out, that's not feedback that helps any designer grow. It just felt gratuitously hostile.
But there's a very strong counterargument. His supporters really appreciate his directness. They see it as a necessary dose of real-world honesty.
Yeah, they argue that fashion is a brutal industry, and his feedback prepares designers for what it's really like with clients. And his supporters consistently point out that while he has these harsh one-liners, he almost always follows them up with detailed, valuable critiques.
Right, about things like wearability, marketability, things other judges sometimes missed.
Exactly. They often contrast him with Michael Kors. Some critics argued that Kors was sometimes just mean with no support, whereas Law always gives critiques with what to do better.
And there's this whole stylist versus designer angle with people diminishing his achievements because he's just a celebrity stylist, not a real designer.
Right, as if he doesn't have the authority because he hasn't struggled with a pattern. But that dismissal totally overlooks the commercial reality of fashion today. Law's approach is this wearable. Does it work for a client's public image? That's an undeniable strength. It's rooted in commercial viability, which is what every designer needs to master to succeed.
Okay, so let's pivot to the undisputed gold standard, Michael Kors. Why does he remain the benchmark for a great reality TV judge years after he left?
The consensus from all the fan discussion is that he had this perfect balance. He was mean and funny at the same time. His critiques were elevated by his quick wit and these bizarre, super specific pop culture references.
Oh, they're legendary. I mean, we're talking about masterpieces of critique, like Flintstone Disco Pouch,
Disco Soccer Ball at Studio 54.
Joan Crawford's St. Patty's Day Party.
And my personal favorite, Rigatoni Mad Max.
Yes. They were so specific and so hilarious. And the sources suggest his humor was inclusive. By making this outlandish joke, it made the designer feel like they were part of it, which eased the tension.
Which is a sharp contrast to how Law Roach is perceived as being bitchy without the funny, where the critique just feels like humiliation.
And finally, we have Nina Garcia. She's the constant anchor, the editor's eye, but even her position seems to be shifting.
The observation is pretty consistent across the board. Nina used to be the judge people piss their pants over. She had these stern, unwavering, high fashion standards. And now, especially in recent seasons, she's seen as having lost some of that powerful voice. She seems almost afraid to step on anyone's toes, maybe because of pressure to be politically correct, or maybe just after so many years, she's tired.
And the loss of her voice is made worse by her just not being there. The sources noted her regular absences, especially that she was missing entirely during the huge unconventional materials challenge in season 21.
And as we're about to discuss, that specific absence led directly to some of the most questionable decisions in the show's recent history. It raises a huge question. If the original standard bearer is stepping back, who's left to hold the competition accountable for actual design integrity?
All right, let's move to the moments that make viewers just want to throw something at their TV.
Yeah.
The biggest injustices, the most infamously awful garments that survived when they absolutely should have been an elimination.
The whole philosophy of the show is one day you're in, the next day you're out. You're only as good as your last look. But that principle gets violated time and time again.
Usually when a really successful designer makes a truly terrible mistake.
Exactly. And the prime example cited everywhere is Emilio Sosa in season 7. He had 5 challenge wins. He was a clear favorite. But then he sent down the runway what fans bitterly remember as the string and washer bikini.
Oh, the Pepto Paco Rabanne disaster.
That's the one. That look was universally seen as atrocious, a total failure of concept, execution, everything. It was a craft project from a hardware store. He should have been eliminated, no question.
But the belief is that his previous wins shielded him. One source said his previous report card saved him, which suggests the judges are rewarding potential, not the actual result, and that breaks the whole premise.
It creates the system of unearned immunity that's so frustrating for viewers. And this lack of objective judging criteria popped up again in season 21 with that controversial unconventional challenge.
The one where Nino was absent.
Right, leaving Law Roach as the sole main judge. And he chose what critics called an awful look to win, the infamous soccer ball design. It was just bizarre, overstructured, bulky.
It was not fashion.
No. Many viewers saw this win as evidence of either a total lack of judging logic or just stunt casting. If one judge's taste can override all established standards and give a win to a look that's widely seen as a failure, it just destroys the show's credibility.
Another huge historical injustice comes from the miserable failure of the Season 9 Image is Everything challenge. They had to design for the band the Sheepdogs.
Oh, that telling is remembered for producing maybe the single worst collection of garments in Project Runway history. Every single outfit was dreadful.
We're talking Bert's flowery Viking look, Kimberly's bowling alley manager jumpsuit.
Too tight pants, a Brady Bunch dashiki. It was a mess.
Olivier got eliminated, but the controversy was huge because of the double standard. Olivier was, he was insufferable. He called the client fat, had a terrible attitude.
But Anya, who won the challenge, sent down jeans that were literally splitting apart at the back on the runway.
So this is the perfect collision of attitude versus skill. The implication is crystal clear. Olivier's bad attitude got him eliminated, which suggests that attitude mattered more than technical skill. They weren't just judging clothes, they were judging TV personas.
Which leads us right to designer misbehavior and unpunished cruelty, where the show just tolerated genuinely unprofessional conduct. And there are 2 big historical examples. First, Jeffrey Sibilia in season 3.
Jeffrey is infamous for his behavior during the makeover challenge, where he made Angela's mother cry on camera. He was just a nasty, whining bully, especially to the non-professional models.
And despite this extreme lack of professionalism and basic decency, he not only avoided elimination, but went on to win the whole season.
Which demonstrated this unnerving tolerance for misogynistic and nasty behavior. The fact that he won despite that cruelty is one of the biggest ethical and competitive injustices in the show's history. It sends a clear message. Talent, or at least perceived talent, excuses atrocious behavior.
The second major incident was with Van Budu in season 10. This provoked massive, long-lasting outrage.
This was the plus-sized makeover challenge.
Yes. He was given a plus-sized client, and he treated her with incredible coldness and disrespect, and then made this ugly, unflattering dress. Critics noted he seemed completely unable to design for anyone who wasn't extremely thin.
The outrage was even worse because Ven himself was plus-sized, and his mother and sister were too, yet he showed zero empathy. He seemed to want to just diminish or hide the client's figure.
And yet, despite his terrible attitude and the client's visible distress, he was saved from elimination. His behavior was totally ignored by the judges, which just confirmed to viewers that production protects designers they want to keep for their drama potential, even at the cost of a client's dignity.
And finally, we have to talk about the production gimmicks, especially in the newer seasons, which are just designed purely to maximize drama.
Viewers see the season 21 elimination cliffhangers and the forced designer voting where they have to vote out a competitor as terrible reboots. It feels copied from shows like RuPaul's Drag Race.
It's drama for the sake of drama over design quality. It feels like a desperate attempt to generate excitement when the clothes themselves are just mediocre.
Right. And that unconventional challenge with only one main judge and Nina's regular absences is also seen as evidence of a shrinking budget. They can't afford the full panel, so they have to resort to silly stunts instead of focusing on the quality of the work.
And gimmicks aren't new. We had the Crying Baby Challenge in Season 10.
Or the Nude Runway Challenge on All Stars.
Let's talk about that Nude Runway Challenge.
Yeah.
It was so ridiculous.
It was. They had to dress people who preferred not to wear clothes, and the models were shown posing naked before getting dressed. The source calls it a ridiculous gimmick, since the episode showed the models unclothed the whole time, just exploiting them for shock value.
It was thinly disguised as a design for real people challenge.
Right, but the two designers who actually focused on comfort and practicality ended up in the bottom, which just proves the challenge was never about practical design. It was just about finding a dramatic visual.
Okay, so now we have to take a necessary pivot here. We spent all this time talking about the chaos, the alleged sabotage, the rigged outcomes of reality TV. When you see Anya's winning garment split at the seams, or Emilio being saved for past glory over current failure, it just highlights this profound lack of foundational technical skills. It makes you wonder, what does the real path to technical mastery actually look like?
This is such a powerful and essential contrast. While reality TV focuses on volatile, subjective outcomes, institutions focused on vocational training like Montgomery College's Workforce Development and Continuing Education, or WDCE, they focus on concrete, verifiable skills.
These are the grounded building blocks for any creative or technical field, including design.
Exactly. The WDCE approach emphasizes measurable skill acquisition, which is precisely what's missing when a designer is kept in a competition based on their personality instead of their ability to sew a durable seam.
So let's look at the technical training areas. These programs are designed to prepare students for specific industry-recognized certification exams, right? Especially in tech, where there's no room for error.
Zero tolerance for error. For instance, for people looking to get into IT, they offer courses for the CompTIA A+ Core 2 exam preparation. That's 100 intensive hours. It's not passive learning. You have to dedicate yourself to pass a major certification exam that proves you have functional skill.
What else?
There's also PC repair introduction, and in the data field, courses like data analysis practitioner. The outcome isn't TV attention. It's a tangible, certified qualification.
And it's not just IT. There are construction and building trades that rely heavily on physical precision and durability, the exact skills Anya lacked when her pants split.
Right. Students can take courses in building trades, blueprint reading, welding, and construction management. And the hands-on, verifiable nature of something like welding is the total opposite of judging fashion. You either create a strong weld or you don't.
There's no Law Roach comment that can make a weak joint strong.
Exactly. Competence, not drama, is the currency.
And for those interested in service and patient care, there are these foundational healthcare roles that are taught so rigorously. They require extensive, measured, in-person commitment.
Oh, yeah. Take the Certified Nursing Assistant Geriatric Assistant Program, the CNA-GNA. It's a demanding program for working in doctors' offices, long-term care. It requires 88 hours of classroom instruction and a mandatory 60 hours of clinical experience in a nursing home or hospital.
Wow, that's a huge commitment. 148 required hours just to get the foundational license. That says a lot compared to a frantic 3-day fashion challenge.
And that level of detail is everywhere. The source also details phlebotomy technician training, which is 90 hours of classroom work. In these fields, technical error can be catastrophic. Precision is mandatory.
And these programs lead to stable, high-demand careers. They value skills long-term, not volatile personalities. But beyond career transition, there's also a big focus on creative arts and personal enrichment.
Right, which brings it back to the foundational elements of creativity. You can take weaving fundamentals, learning to weave textiles on a multi-shaft floor loom. This is the opposite of unconventional material chaos. It's mastering the very structure of fabric.
There are also drawing and watercolor classes, helping students develop actual technical skills in visual expression.
And even for everyday life, there are these incredibly practical courses: music theory, healthy cooking, and one called Math and Music, which teaches wise shopping and money management while listening to soft summer songs.
Budgeting and wise purchases, a skill a designer facing bankruptcy rumors could definitely use.
For sure. And it's important to note the accessibility. These courses are offered across Montgomery County, Maryland, with online options too. And for Maryland residents 60 and older, tuition may be waived, which makes lifelong learning highly accessible. a huge contrast to the exclusionary world of high fashion.
Speaking of practical skills, the deep dive included a crash course in DIY home projects, which shows that technical application doesn't need a runway to be useful.
That's where the technical skills meet the everyday. One of the simplest projects is recovering dining room chair cushions. The sources detail the essential tools for this. You need a sturdy staple gun, heavy-duty staples, sharp fabric scissors, and pliers to remove the old staples.
And this task requires attention to detail, precision, understanding material tensions, all the skills missing when an unfinished garment goes down the runway.
And the sources emphasize that there's a professional threshold. Simple, flat cushions are great for DIY, but you should call a professional for intricate tufting, complex curves, or if your fabric costs over $50 a yard, it's an honest assessment of your own skill limitation.
And long-term maintenance is key. Rotate chairs, address spills immediately, regular vacuuming. This is knowledge that's useful long after the final runway is packed up. It's based in practical competence. Okay, let's bring it back to the world of Project Runway to talk about the legacy of its people, starting with the biggest void in the show's history, Tim Gunn.
There is a nearly unanimous fan consensus on this. Tim Gunn is irreplaceable. He was the heart and soul of the show. His presence brought sincerity, genuine wisdom, constructive guidance.
And his departure was monumental. The sources suggest it was tied to allegations that the showrunners were exploiting the designer's intellectual property.
And potentially taking a percentage of the winner's earnings.
That's a huge under-discussed factor. If designers felt their work was being exploited under unfair contracts, that explains why the show's credibility just tanked when he left. It suggests a fundamental internal rot.
Absolutely. For many, his departure was the moment the show officially shifted from a competition about craft to an exploitation engine. His return is constantly requested, with viewers calling Christian Siriano a snooze fest by comparison.
They say he lacks the grace, the tact, the constructive nature of Tim Gunn.
Right. And Christian's performance as a mentor has drawn consistent, pointed fire. Critics feel he's uninspiring, often nasty in his delivery, and frequently acts self-involved, focusing more on his own success.
It really confirms that feeling that the mentor role has shifted from guiding creativity to just fostering drama. A dynamic Christian seems to lean into, which, just confirms that fan rumor that he's only there for the easy money and to maintain his profile.
It's clear that this new version of the show relies heavily on, and you could argue manufacturers, the villain archetype to replace the void left by a lack of genuine, high-quality design.
The sources map out this recurring cast of major villains. In Season 1, you had Wendy Pepper, who realized early on that she needed a villain narrative to stay, and she brought this new level of bitchiness and plotting to reality TV.
And you have other major figures like Jeffrey Sibilia, Gretchen Jones, and the notoriously annoying twins from Season 16, who are described as villains to the viewer because of their constant saccharine love fests and screeching.
And then you have the designers whose attitudes just completely eclipse their talent, creating these memorable, volatile TV moments that guaranteed them screen time.
Right, like Joshua McKinley from Season 9. His primary role wasn't really designing, it was creating conflict. Shouting at Becky to take a nap, questioning looks with, "I will not have it, Bert." His volatility made him compelling TV, but his design work was often secondary.
And of course, Kenley Collins, whose current reputation, with her unhinged rants and problematic views, now totally distracts from any past talent she had. It just confirms that fame from reality TV is often fleeting and ultimately defined by personality, not craft.
And a key element of the show's legacy is who production decides to save for personality over talent. Sam, in Season 5 of All Stars, is a prime example of this.
Oh, Pham was widely seen as being kept on the show, despite consistently poor designs. One look was compared to a random homeless person.
But production favored him, or found him attractive, or just wanted the tension he created by being less skilled than everyone else.
The designers themselves reportedly complained on social media about the blatant favoritism, especially when more technically skilled people, like Cordo in Season 20, were allegedly unfairly sabotaged or eliminated.
Cordo's elimination in Season 20 was described by one fan as nonsense. They argued she should have won that episode. It just illustrates that profound frustration when the story overrides objective design critique. It makes the whole competition feel fraudulent.
And this injustice permeates every season. It's always a question of talent versus construction. We saw it with Anya in Season 9, who won, despite having zero construction skills. Her jeans split on the runway.
Her victory was based more on her eye for prints and the producer's preference for a compelling narrative. It shows that sometimes the show is more about spotting a potential brand than rewarding technical mastery.
It seems like the show's credibility is constantly undermined because they don't stick to that philosophy that designers are only as good as their last look.
Which was the best part of the early Bravo seasons. But now, past performance, or worse, a dramatic personality, often keeps lame designers moving forward, and you end up with shows full of junk.
And the production gimmicks just keep getting recycled and worse. We already mentioned the season 21 cliffhangers and forced voting, but we can't forget other calculated rule breaks. Like back in season 13 when Tim Gunn saved Shar for a second time after her zipper broke.
He allegedly guilted the rest of the designers into agreeing to give her more time to finish.
Nobody else ever got extra time for a mechanical failure, before or since.
Precisely. It creates massive drama and the beloved Tim Gunn save narrative, but it fundamentally breaks the rules of a fair, timed competition. The biggest takeaway from all this drama, from sabotage to manipulated judging, is this constant destructive tension between the desire for genuine talent and the producer's insatiable need for conflict.
So when Law Roach is accused of being mean-spirited for sport, and Christian is called uninspiring, it just fuels the feeling that they're there to generate sound bites and keep the drama churning, not to genuinely critique a fabric choice or the integrity of a seam. So, what does this all mean when we bring these two distinct worlds together? We have the high-glamour, highly fabricated world of Project Runway on one hand, and a hyper-practical, skills-focused world of vocational training on the other.
The synthesis reveals two main parallel narratives. The reality competition is fundamentally messy. It's often driven by the producer's desire for manufactured conflict, sometimes using unfair contracts and prioritizing loud, volatile personalities.
And that leads to questionable judging decisions, and an atmosphere that allegedly drives away or sabotages the most technically talented designers in favor of the most dramatic ones.
That manufactured chaos stands in stark contrast to the second narrative we explored, the straightforward, pragmatic path of acquiring skills outside the reality TV machine. The WDCE courses we discussed offer tangible, measurable outcomes: a CNA certificate, CompTIA readiness, or the ability to professionally reupholster a chair.
These are skills that endure regardless of who wins a television popularity contest.
The core difference is the currency. In the vocational world, whether you're welding, doing phlebotomy, or repairing a PC, the currency is verifiable skill, precise application, demonstrable knowledge. In reality TV, especially now, the currency appears to be attention and volatility.
It's about building a marketable personality, often at the expense of design integrity.
So the ultimate question for any designer thinking of applying is whether the reward of exposure is worth the potential sacrifice of their artistic control, their integrity, and their mental health.
We've seen designers accuse Tim Gunn of racism, Christian of ripping off designs, and judges prioritizing drama over actual design mastery. They saved Emilio when his garment was a disaster and let Anya win when her construction failed. If a competition is designed to select the next great designer, but it allegedly drives away the most technically competent ones with unfair contracts and prioritized conflict, then what exactly is the prize?
Is it a viable career or just a brief moment of highly manipulated attention?
And that raises an important point for you, the learner. We've talked about fields like CNA training or welding, where there's zero tolerance for error. The patient has to be cared for, the structure must hold. But Project Runway frequently rewards designers who demonstrate catastrophic technical failures.
This brings us to the final provocative question for you to mull over. If the ultimate prize of winning Project Runway is exposure and fame, but the reality of the show seems to prioritize the villains and the drama, often overlooking foundational construction mastery, then shouldn't emerging designers focus their energy less on building a volatile television persona and more on acquiring the verifiable, certified foundational skills needed for success in any demanding environment?
Where does the true long-lasting value lie? In the applause of a manipulated runway, or in the quiet, enduring mastery of the stitch?